Well, welcome back to the Hit It podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I am super excited to bring you this guest here today. Mr. John Horton joins us in the virtual studio. John, how are you doing?
Doing good. It's a lovely August morning here in northern Central California. Going to talk to you this morning, and then I'm going to go to the lake and get a couple of ski rides. So couldn't be better.
That sounds like a good plan. Well, I briefly got to see you a couple weeks ago at the US Nationals in Bakersfield, California. I wanted to start there and then we're going to go into many topics. And I know our listeners are going to be super excited to hear this podcast. But I will tell you this. That was my boys. I have twin boys that are 7, their first experience competing at the Nationals, and our family had an absolute blast. I mean, from all the stuff that they got down vendors row into the vendors booth. They skied great. The conditions were great. They even got a practice set. And I know you were deeply involved at points throughout that tournament because I saw you moving and going. Just tell us a little bit about the Nationals in a recap.
Well, let me be clear. So I used to live down there. I'm no longer part of that group, but those guys, Joe Biafora and Eric Francois and Charlie Gaharon, those guys worked super hard, and I think they put on kind of an amazing event. The thing about that venue is you're not going to find more even, consistent water conditions, and I don't know of a ski site in the world where you've got, especially 3 lakes in a row, where the water is nearly a sheet of glass all day long, maybe a little ripple on the water. Those guys worked really hard. It was their first really big event. And I don't, I think from the skiers' perspective, it was a massive success. And I'm really proud for those guys. I just helped out and did scout work and ran around in circles, but those guys deserve all the credit.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job, and it's been a while. It's been a minute since we've been to Bakersfield. I think it was 2007 was the last time. So it sounds like is it a fairly new crew? Is there some veterans there to kind of guide them through that national process? Because it went so well. Was there some new people, some old people, a mix? How did that work for them?
So Joe had been there back in the day when they had nationals a couple times many years ago, including when they did it the next lake over at Paradise Lakes. Eric is kind of new. He was actually my primary ski partner when I lived down there in Bakersfield. So yeah, it's a bunch of people that just kind of put their shoulder into it. And really, because there's not a huge competitive skiing community in Bakersfield, there's a lot of lakes, but there's not that many skiers. The rest of the kind of the West Coast California crew came together, and you got a lot of the Sacramento people that came down and really lent a hand, and a lot of wisdom coming from the senior and international level judges that had seen events all over the world came and really helped make that event come off.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk a lot about you. We're going to talk a lot about Ball of Spray, everything that you mean to the sport. First of all, most people are going to be familiar with you from the website Ball of Spray. In my opinion, arguably one of the most important websites there is out there for water skiing. Certainly, I think it could be argued like the most trafficked website as far as the volume of people who visit the website per day. Where and what in 2024 do you see your role in the sport of water skiing?
I knew you were going to ask that question, and that's a hard one. I mean, part of me wants to say that I'm just running a website that's trying to promote the sport, right? I'm trying to facilitate conversations. Um, there's things that there's specific subjects that occasionally come up that I'm extra passionate about that maybe, you'll see me contributing to the sport more in those instances. But really more than anything, I'm just trying to create a virtual bar. I don't even drink anymore, but whatever. It's a virtual bar where people are sitting around and they're talking about water skiing, where people that they want to talk about restoring their own boat, their old boat, fine, talk about repowering your boat. But more to the point, there's guys talking about, hey, I'm stuck at 28 miles an hour or 28 off or 38 off. And they're all talking about you know, their trials and tribulations, and some of it's technique and some of it is just kind of commiserating. And that's that virtual, maybe it's better to think about it as a coffee shop, but everybody's around just having conversations about skiing, and that facilitating those conversations, I think that's my role. I think that's a lot of what I do.
That's awesome. You know, it's interesting. So my kids, they're 7 years old. They compete in their first nationals this year. And anybody who's coached kids through 15 miles an hour up to 28 to 30 miles an hour know that the wakes at times can be a very dangerous condition. And I was watching it one day and I said, man, it really looks like I need to put a helmet on there. And I know the technology has improved and surfing has picked up on this and some things over the years. Your website was the first place that I went to, and there was an in-depth thread about, opinions all over the board, whether, if you put the helmet on, was it going to bucket their head or was it more protective? And it really got me started down the trail of finding a helmet that we ended up using at the Nationals because my next phone call to visiting your website was Jay Bennett. And because I said, well, Jay has seen it all at a water ski school. So my use for the website is like you're saying, it is as broad as understanding a very unique subject like that. I found it on your website. And then it goes all the way into water skis.
That's right.
So when we look at how wide ranging what we see on Ball of Spray is. It could be a very unique topic that's very specialized, all the way to vendors sending you skis. And they're saying, hey, John, write a review on this or post a video on this. And then we see you on that ski. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, let me first address the thing with the helmet. So that something that I think is really important is the website's an archive. So I don't know that thread you read about helmets, that might have been from last year and it might be from 10 years ago.
Sure.
Now with the really old stuff, maybe the pictures aren't there anymore because we've changed databases and some boring stuff we probably don't want to talk about here. But I think it's really important that the website is growing this content. So when you're looking for something, when somebody buys a 2015 ski and they want settings for it, those settings are there. Or you're looking for a helmet, which honestly is not a hot button for me, but it's a hot button for you, and somebody talked about it. So I think that's really kind of interesting that we're gathering that archive. It's a resource. I mean, that's another. I guess I don't talk about it much, but I hope that's one of the great values of the website. And the ski reviews, I looked it up last night, and I think I did my first one in 2007. It was a Conley
Wow.
Prophecy, and for years I did 3 or 4 skis a year, and I think it taught me a lot about skiing. I think it taught me a lot about skis, and it built relationships, helped me build relationships with people at the factories. Sometimes there was some dark moments there when I didn't love a ski, but the truth of the matter is, it's worn me down, and I'm gonna try to kind of step away and do a lot less of it in the future. Last 2 years, my skiing has kind of suffered, I think, because of it. So it's something I've done for years, and it's eaten me alive, frankly, but fun.
Yeah, I mean, well, you do so many things, right? Not only are you doing the site, you're trying to keep up with your skiing. Like you said, when you get out done with this podcast, you're going to be back out on the water. And then testing skis is not easy. I mean, there's binding settings, there's fin settings, there's all sorts of types of things that go into that. Of course, all the relationships that you have with the vendors. It's not only that they're sending you skis, but they're also advertising on your website.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about the advertising on the website.
Well, as the only real website, I think that is, I mean, USA Water Ski's website that serves its purpose, but it's very distinct and it's doing something different, right? That's like association specific news and rankings and all that stuff that's super important, all the events. But as far as like a general website, I think Ball Spray is completely unique in the sport, right? There's nobody else out there. So for Radar or Conley or HO or Mastercraft or whoever, when they want to reach that really specific audience, I am the source. A company selling flip flops and T-shirts, well, they're going to go off and they're going to advertise on Facebook and probably get greater value. But if you're selling gloves and bindings and skis and vests, Ball of Spray is that incredibly dense, the dense audience. These people, if they're reading the website, they're obsessive about water skiing. They're not casual about it. Because if you don't love water skiing, I don't know what you're doing on the website.
But no doubt about it. I mean, I think we're all fanatics that are on the website and reading through the blogs and seeing what's being posted and who has the latest podcast. Obviously, you've been so gracious and we've been so thankful that a lot of our content with the podcast has been
Mm.
posted on there, and so many people have viewed the content of a lot of slalom, trick at times, jump at times, three event skiing. One of the things that I think that's interesting, John, as the facilitator of the website or the original creator of the platform is your history attached to water skiing. Now, I know you're familiar with this hat, and I had to bring it. There's my Horton Lakes hat,
Ah,
right? I feel like
yeah.
I'd probably need to wear it the rest of the episode. Probably
No,
will.
no, no.
But that's a Horton Lakes hat. And a lot of people know your story, some people don't. But your family developed the first man-made water ski lake ever. And how important that is to where we stand currently. We brought up nationals at the beginning of the show. What's so interesting about this is to have you there, who's experienced the whole ride of a man-made ski lake, is now having like helping the tournament back in California, and there's like 13 of these in a row, right? That's pretty cool, and you've seen how that's impacted the sport. Talk to us a little bit about your role because you're you're a facilitator of this website, you're a moderator of this website, you're the platform creator of this website, but you might be embedded more into water skiing than some professional athletes, I would go to say.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose so. And I'm not, those guys, as I like to call myself, I'm the most famous mediocre skier in the world, right? Those pro guys, they're living in their own world, and that's awesome. I don't really know how to, I don't know if I'm more embedded. I don't know how to think about it that way, but yes, the private lake thing. I mean, the story goes that when my dad came to California in the mid '60s, nobody had ever even thought of the private ski lake before, right? It had never been done, and in Los Angeles there was no place to ski. So the short version is he found some real estate about 2 hours from where we lived, and the real estate was inexpensive and the water was plentiful, and he had drawn up plans. He kind of like gone on to wherever he was skiing in Colorado. I don't know if it was Patrick Lake or the dam at Boulder, but he driven the boat in a circle to figure out what the minimum turning radius was, and looked at the size of the website and drew out the dimensions. Um, and when you go to ski lakes worldwide today, you see the basic template. I mean, you see deviation, you see some smaller lakes without islands, and it's a fair question: do we need islands anymore? But that template that of the lake that was being filled the year I was born is the standard man-made water ski lake that we see today. I was at Shortline Lake for Cal Pro last weekend, and that lake looks roughly pretty similar to the lake my dad put water in 1968.
Wow.
We're 55 years on.
Wow. And that's just a cool connection that, I my how I learned to get up was at Patrick Lake in Colorado, right?
Patrick Lake's
So
awesome.
yeah,
Great
Patrick
memories.
Lake, all the way back to those days. And it's just been an incredible thing. So my parents, they and I grew up on a in my teenage years, a man-made ski lake in Cypress, Texas. And like I said, I mean, like that's your dad had that vision. And I've been a beneficiary of being a kid that had the opportunity to grow up that way. And now I'm trying desperately. We go over to our parents' house to ski, but I would be desperate to get onto a ski lake again so I can give my kids the same experience of a man-made ski lake.
Right. And
So
let me stop you. The connection
yeah, go
goes
ahead.
further. The connection goes further. I'm sure you have stories from your mother
That's
When
right.
she was, I don't know how old she was, but when she was young and I was probably in diapers and she was skiing at my dad's ski lake.
That's right. Yeah. And for our listeners, my mom is what would be to some of our listeners, Trudy Speak. Trudy Speak, she was on the world team in the 70s. And I would say that her time, when I ask her about how did she get so good, she will always go to Horton Lake. That will be the default answer because she goes, there was nothing else to do out there. We were just skiing. And she remembers you as a little kid, out
Right.
there skiing. And then, long story short, back then it was different though, because, you could, everybody was so, I guess, scattered across the country. I think a lot of it has migrated to Florida in recent years. But back then, as long as you could get that high quality water time, you were very, very competitive. And she ended up getting onto the world team and then, getting to ski with some of the best skiers in the world because of that and great friendships. But it always comes back to her time at Horton Lake.
Well, and of course, stemming off that, I have very fond memories of, your grandparents and whatever. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
no,
that's
it's
another
good.
podcast, baby.
We could do part two on that another day.
All right.
Let me ask you this question. This is tough, and I don't know. I've never seen this statement, but does ballofspray.com have a mission? Is there a mission statement? What is it trying to do?
And ball spray is was it was literally created as a necessity for me looking for information. It was the intent was what I was trying to create was a place where I could go and be surrounded by people that knew more about water skiing than I did. So I could be on a quest for more knowledge. And I suppose however many years now, it's been nearly 15 years since the website started. My quest is for people to come through there that are looking for knowledge. How do I ski better, and a little bit of how do I set up my ski or what's wrong with my boat. But it's there to be a resource because you go back to the early 2000s. I think there was actually four forums for a minute there. There was Ski Fly, the Nichols Forum, the Water Ski Forum, and one other, I think. And a lot of it was maybe entertainment, and there was a lot of people bickering, but there was not a place that was really um, curated to be an exchange of information.
Right,
And
right.
now, obviously, a lot of people come through the website for pure entertainment, and that's fine. But what's important to me is that when somebody is is passionate about the sport and trying to get better, that they can find some help.
Right.
That there's information there and there's encouragement. And so I guess if there's a mission statement, it's to help people um, get better, help people, find the answers they're looking for so they continue on down their mission of water skiing.
Right. No, that's excellent. And that kind of leads me to where I was going anyway. And when I think of Ball of Spray, it's so diverse on the information you can find that, if there was breaking news, something happened at a tournament, well, everybody's going to the forum, right?
Right.
Because they're trying to figure it out. And all of this stuff back in the day happened with phone calls on landlines, and then it went to cell phones, and now it's like at the fingertips, and Ball of Spray is kind of the central hub in which everybody goes. And, there are pro athletes, let's say take a pro event, for example, that will post to their own social media. But I
Mhm.
think for to jump in the conversation, your site's definitely number one where you go find that conversation. So one of the primary functions is this exchange of knowledge, whether it's a question about a boat or a ski or how to run 15 off, but there's also the current competitive information that's out there. For example, I wanted to figure out how to do a practice ride at nationals. Got that answered on the forum. But with that comes a unique responsibility with you as the platform creator, the moderator, the facilitator of this. Because this is a difficult question, but I think it's a fair question. Um, there's other avenues to go have freedom of speech. And like
Mm.
we've seen Elon Musk, for example, that's one of the reasons he says that he bought Twitter and turned it into X. But keeping with the mission or what you would like to see the website perpetuate as a narrative or a community is an important factor in how people post and what the content that you find when you go there. Talk to us about that because that has been, people have tried that in the past to monitor that in a way that is a healthy place of an exchange of information. And you have been in the trenches of that for quite some time now and have done an enormously fabulous job of doing it because I can only imagine this is a small community. You're going to see these people at a tournament again. They're not going away. Talk to us about your relationship with your community on the forum.
Well, you talk about Elon and Twitter is theoretically almost pure free speech. And the difference between a community like a Twitter community or an X community and Ball of Spray is on Ball of Spray, it is almost free speech within this box, right? If it's about water skiing and it's friendly and well intentioned, any opinion is welcome. You know, unless it's obviously ridiculous. So, the point is if the goal is exchange of information, it has to be friendly. It has to be almost like a conversation that you would have in a workplace. Back at the beginning, I think I was banning somebody once a month for being just difficult, for just being disruptive, for preventing the good exchange of information. And these would be people like, there's this famous example, and I won't name the name, but I talked to the guy on the phone, and he was the nicest guy ever. And he loved water skiing. He had passion. And he'd get behind his keyboard, and it was pure venom. Just couldn't stop himself from picking fights. So, over the years, it's kind of evolved into shaping the community to let them know that, if you want to be involved, you need to be friendly and helpful. And then, if you want to say that you should bend your knees so much that your butt touches your fin box through the wakes, you're welcome to say that. But you're going to find people that are going to suggest that maybe that's not the best way to slalom ski. Um, and then, we if you're a signed in member, there is a whole section in there where you can talk about barbecue or your favorite beer but it's so far off topic that we hide that from the non-members because part of the magic, part of the success of Ball Spray is that it's primarily very narrow focused. That it's like when you live within this box, talk about all the stuff. But if you want to go outside that box, well, there's the whole rest of the internet you can go to.
Sure, sure. And what's interesting about this is, these are not empty discussions in the sense that they're just not opinions being thrown around because it has the power to actually unite the sport and progress the sport in better ways. And at times, it's almost operated as an independent watchdog,
Mm.
right? If you've been in the sport for any amount of time, and I would say, over the decades, you might have heard of scores in one state or one particular site where you're going, I don't really know how they're skiing 4 to 6 buoys better over there. And when
Right.
I go ski against them at regionals and nationals, I've never seen them get that close. All those thoughts have entered into every water skier's mind. Well, as kind of an independent watchdog, people from time to time do jump on Ball of Spray to shed light on these particular issues. Is there any example that pops into your mind where, maybe what we're doing in the forum is much more than conversation? It's
Mm-hmm.
actually making the sport better.
Right. So, if we go back, before the internet, obviously we all heard about, hey, there's some tournament where everybody runs a bunch more buoys, and we all kind of wondered, and in those days, we were getting to nationals was everybody's big goal, and somebody would go to a tournament with a loose boat path or narrow buoys, and they'd qualify for nationals, and you wouldn't, and maybe none of that really happened, but we thought it did, right? And so as the internet age came, we had the ability to stand up and say, that doesn't seem right. And we'd hear about scores quickly, right? And I don't, it's hard to know, right? Like, I mean, I think I've personally been the one that's really stood up and pointed the finger a number of times. And I certainly don't want to name names because maybe we were wrong, but there was times we looked at events and and I'm generally talking about the pro ranks where if you look at the scores and you look at all the other scores that have happened at pro events year after year after year, it doesn't make sense. I mean, the there's a statistical, consistency to pro skiing, right? I mean, you expect the top pros in good conditions to run 3 or 4 at 41 is going to be the cut for a pro event. And you go somewhere and suddenly it's everybody's running 41. Something's wrong there, right? That's a problem. So I definitely stuck my head above the crowd and yelled a number of times. And accusations of let's just say abnormal driving. This is especially before SurePath came in. But at the same time, I'm going to say I have been wrong. I think I think we've probably pointed the finger and said, I don't think that boat path is right, and maybe unfairly criticize some people in the sport. So as years go on, I'm a little bit more hesitant because you don't really want to hesitate people that have the best intentions. And I'll also say that maybe I've been guilty of believing people that were more conspiratorial than myself. And they said, hey, this crazy thing is happening. I was like, well, do I believe that? Do I report that? And say for the last couple of years, if I can't confirm it from multiple sources, it stays close. And I my email does get lit up with some crazy ideas sometimes. And,
Yeah.
you know, I hope to just I hope to be a pushback that if somebody is pushing the boundaries, if somebody is cheating for whatever reason, and I think usually it is a ski lake organization or owner who just wants to feel like their lake is awesome, so they're going to make higher scores happen, and we can't have that. So I hope that the influence of the website is to really help stop that from happening. And I just think simple things like the advent of SurePath has also probably done, it's probably done much more than my voice has done.
Yeah. Well, I think that's amazing reflection on kind of your development of understanding all the information that you're getting. It's almost like you don't have a corporate structure in the sense
Yeah.
that you're reporting to anybody. So that's what makes you the independent watchdog. But you do have a lot of personalities that are probably trying to get in your ears saying, I think this is what, and then you've got to sift through all of that information. And then the hardest part, just like we all know on social media and in the world we live in right now, is as we continue to grow, we continue to learn, and we're learning out loud sometimes for everybody to watch and see. So, just kind of an incredible journey to hear your thought process and how you're managing your way through that. Um, let's talk about technology real quick. You
Yeah.
mentioned SurePath, right?
Oh, yep.
It has changed well, since Horton Lake, the digging of
Hmm.
Horton Lake dramatically. I mean, wood skis to fiberglass, all the way up to carbon fiber. Now I go to nationals. I rarely see at the top seeds um, a rubber boot on a binding and slalom. I
Hmm.
mean, there is a lot of hard shells. So that's just the technology within the skis that have changed. But also when you look at the equitable side of the sport, you mentioned SurePath, obviously the advent of Perfect Pass, and then to zero off and where we are at right now. Is there anything that we could be doing from a technology standpoint better, or what would you like to see going forward?
I mean, it's not a secret that things like auto driving are being developed, right? So in theory, the skier who lives alone on his lake with his wife and she's not comfortable driving short line, that in this fantasy future world, she starts the boat, gets her husband up and clicks a button and the boat just finds the course and drives down the middle. I'm pretty nervous about that eventuality. I look back at the transition from perfect pass to zero off, and zero off is a vastly superior product. But I very much worry about keeping people in the sport that are already here. I worry about those transitions of technology, that it would be a financial burden, or somebody loves the boat and the equipment they have. And so I think when we went from perfect pass to zero off, we had to do it. It's nobody's fault, but we lost competitors,
Hmm.
right? That person that had just bought a 2007 boat showed up at a tournament in 2008, and the cruise control was dramatically different. And I think we lost membership over it,
Yeah.
right? So now, anything older than 2008, I think if you've got I'm a Mastercraft guy, but if you told me that you're skiing tomorrow behind a Nautique 197 from back then, I'm like, that thing's great. Let's go ski. It's good enough. I don't care that it's 15 years old or however old that is. So I'm a little bit pessimistic about the new technology.
Sure.
SurePath is wonderful, probably as much or more than it giving us more consistent driving in tournaments is it's made the average driver a great driver. I mean, I love SurePath. I think that's a fantastic innovation. But I do think that we need to tread lightly moving forward. Technology is not a panacea. We need to be thinking about what's going to keep more people involved in the sport. How do we keep our ranks what they are, and then look for ways to grow our ranks?
Exactly. One of the subjects that pops into my mind, I would love to hear your comment on it, is I was at a trick tournament this summer and I noticed we were doing video tricks, and the equipment we were using was like a Kodak something you can't even buy anymore that's like 10 years old, while everybody on the site is sitting there with an iPhone. What needs to happen to, I guess, integrate what everybody has in their pocket, which is their phone, into the sport in something like that to make it easier so we could get, for example, trick scores out, within a couple hours instead of the same people who are tricking an event are still at the event till 8 o'clock at night scoring the event on technology that has to be funneled through a computer. Because I just don't know much about that. But it seems that when we talk about technology, yes, we solved one problem with video tricks. But on the other hand, when back in the day when you would call them live with pink sheets, you would have your score within 30 minutes. And so there's some equitable things when it comes to the competition there. But, did the technology in that particular case make people want to go to more tournaments? Um, I don't know. I'd like your opinion. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not a black and white person on any of these subjects. Like, was pink sheets and calling tricks live better than the current? No, I don't think so. I think a properly done video tricks, it's superior judging. But on the flip side, I think your point is when we first started video tricks, everybody went out and bought whatever video camera that was current at that point 20 years ago. So today it's a piece of junk, and we're kind of still using it, right? We're like, I love your comment about people using their phones to do it, which is, to me, it's superior. So I don't know. I mean, uh, one of my hot buttons on the video thing is, I don't know why at an L tournament we can't have somebody sitting in the boat, a human, holding a phone, shooting every slalom pass. So it's a third person in the boat as backup video, because tracker video is never as good as handheld cell phone video. And then when you get this call that impacts somebody's national ranking, or in the case of a pro tournament, there's money involved, you've got the highest quality thing you can have possible, unless TWBC is there. And then, of course, that's the next level up. So I don't know if I answered your question. Tricks is, I still trick and I still enjoy it, but I'm not really in that trick judging orbit. I
Sure.
don't know.
Sure. Well, and it's a It's almost a bigger conversation because you trade one for the other, speed, but I like what you said about the quality of superior judging. I don't know if I've ever heard it that way. Of course, that's what's implied with that, but that's exactly what it is. It's superior judging when you have good video. There's no doubt about it in the turnaround. And so the balance, I think, where we're going with this conversation, the balance between our relationship with the sport and what it is and technology, it's almost like we've got to start viewing the pros and cons and weighing the scales very, very closely because what is intended to be for good sometimes doesn't necessarily inure to the best benefit of the sport. Would you agree with that?
Right. I mean, I see everything like this through the lens of, are we driving people out of the sport or are we bringing people in the sport? I mean, the struggles with the sport is death by a thousand cuts, right? It's a lot of little things that are good or bad. Like none of these single issues are the problem, but when you add them all up, it's a lot of problems. So is video judging, when somebody's going to the casual 2 or 3 tournaments a year, does this improve their experience or not? I mean, that's what we should care about is, does this improve their experience? And then is it providing scores that are going to be consistent? Am I going to get the same trick score with the same trick run in California as I am in Florida?
Sure. It's interesting just for our listeners, for context purposes, when John's talking about this and his dad skied with my grandpa and all these types
Right.
of things. I mean, we're going back to the archives in our own mind when they were in the sport in the 1950s. A lot of people don't know this, but men's slalom was going 38 miles an hour, and the buoys were as big as exercise balls, and all these types of things. So to fast forward where we are now, there's been huge progressions, but John, you sit there as someone who's literally seen it all
Yeah.
in the last 40 to 50 years, at least as far as the innovation's concerned. So I put your opinion way up there on how you're filtering the
Yeah.
information and the way
And
you're answering it.
and we have come a long ways. I mean, I know that, we get off on the subjects of judging and such. I get kind of serious and sterile, but I want to give you a humorous anecdote from my childhood. Do you remember Mark Sharash?
Yeah,
Okay, well, as a small child, I remember going to Mark Sharash's parents' Winnebago on the side of the lake as the women were doing trick scoring, and Mark's mom would be, and her, whoever was helping her, would be in that Winnebago, chain smoking and drinking wine out of a box. So that's how far trick scoring has come. Now we're video where they're reviewing it in a partition, like, cubicles, watching the video screen from a perfect video camera. And back in the day, it was, box wine, chain
sure.
smoking in a Winnebago. So I mean, the world has changed substantially.
Yeah. Yeah. And you even go back to the old trick rules where you would have to hold a side slide for a certain amount of seconds and
Ski over your head for extra 20%
yeah,
points.
yeah. I've heard that stuff. Like one tournament, my mom was telling me you got points for a dock start. I mean, it's wildly different than it used to be. Let's switch gears.
Okay.
Collegiate skiing. We
Oh,
share
the
a
best.
common background that I was at ULM, which was formerly NLU. You skied for the Warhawks, the greatest dynasty that there's ever been in collegiate water skiing. As all my listeners probably know, I'm a little biased there. But talk to us about your time there because it's a very unique place. You get to ski on the bayou, but from the way I understand your story, especially all your skiing you did at Horton Lakes, where um, I think at one time I had heard you say that sometimes it was hard to find people who were better to train with because of where
Right.
you were located. I would assume, and I'm just speculating when I ask this question, I would assume by the time you got to NLU, uh, you had a lot of good teammates. And how did that progress your skiing and what's your view of collegiate water skiing?
Well, I've long said you never want to be the best skier on your lake, right?
That's
If you
right.
want to progress. And, by the end of high school, whatever, our ski school, as I've said in the past, is kind of, it was retail, right? We did not have elite coaches. We were serving wealthy people in Los Angeles. So when I got to college, suddenly I was surrounded by people like JD Wiswall
Yeah.
or Mark Shaw. I mentioned both those guys because we lost them both in the last couple of years, and hearts broken for both of them. Getting to be on that college team, those interactions, skiers at the same level, and they were striving to be. We weren't just we were there to win college nationals, but we were also trying to win USA water ski nationals. I skied with Brian Swenson, who won overall, I think, like my junior year in college. And, we had guys like Shay Langley, who was kind of an unknown name, but was one of the top trickers at the time. And uh, what's Beavis's real name? He's killing me. I can't think of his real name. Beavis, you know who you are. And I'm Mark Lane. Mark Lane was there. Look at him now. He's one of the
Yeah.
elite coaches in the sport,
Yeah.
pro tour jumper, a lot of really good skiers. So that whole environment of young college skiers feeding on each other, it was an amazing experience. It really helped. I think we all, between freshman year and senior year, we all became better skiers.
Mm.
And I gotta again mention JD Wiswall. Jump was my thing back then, and coming from California, we really did not have a super knowledgeable jump culture. And that one summer, I stayed in Monroe and skied with JD. I jumped further than I can prove because I never really jumped that far in a tournament, but really good times. And
Mm.
he had a huge heart, and he's terribly missed by everybody who went to school with him at NLU, and then he finished up at Lafayette. But
Yeah.
we missed
No.
JD.
Yeah, heartfelt there, no doubt. I didn't really get the opportunity to watch JD ski. I got coached by him when I went to Bennett's later on when I was a kid and those types of things. But a video surfaced on YouTube, and I don't know what nationals it is, but it's got to be maybe his like first year in Men One or something like that. I could not comprehend how athletic he was on his approach. Because you saw in this video, I think there was a bunch of the people that you just mentioned, like the top five jumpers in that particular nationals. And then and they're, well, this is really good. Of course, you're watching it on shorter skis and it looks a lot different. But then JD comes out and you're going, oh my goodness, he's going to turn like that to the ramp. Like it was a completely different category. So the opportunity, I'm sure, was just huge that summer at Monroe.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me ask you this question. We've talked a lot about a lot of things, and we're in 2024. Where do you see, or where do you want to see competitive water skiing go in the next 10 years?
My biggest concern and my biggest desire is that we find a way to bring more people in the men one, women one, two and three divisions into the sport to kind of grow that group. That's that's where we're suffering right now. So that's my concern. I mean, I know, your question was more positive. Where do I want to see it go? I'm more of like, how do we save what we have? We have this wonderful sport that's a family activity for many of us, you and I both, with our children. I want to see this thing continue. Currently, I think we're in a state where I think men's seven was the biggest division at nationals, which is a concern. So I'm a little bit glass half empty. I apologize because I know you're a glass half full kind of guy. But the thing that I think we really need to do is like figure out how to get kids when they finish college to stay
Mhm.
in water skiing. And I don't know that there's a solution. That's a hard one. It's a nut I don't know how to crack, but I think that needs to be a really big focus because I want water skiing to continue. This thing is amazing. I think about the people that, I think about the ski companies and those, it's not just those people's jobs, but these products, this whole industry, this whole environment, this whole universe. I want it to thrive, and so that's probably a really roundabout answer to your question.
Yeah, no, no, no. I think it's good. I think it's good. I mean, identifying where we're at and what we need to do is part of trying to find that solution. I think, and I would like your opinion on this. And this is like I said, I was at the Nationals with my 7-year-olds this year, and I will tell you this. I'm having so much fun being the dad, not only getting to compete when I can and doing those types of things, because you and me both, we've been through the sport from the junior ranks all the way through, and now like it comes back around in this loop with your kids. And there's so many intangible things that I cannot give my kids or get my kids or teach my kids outside of the sport of water skiing in an environment that is so much fun. And it was so cool to watch their face light up this year when it started clicking and the course started coming and they were improving. And you know how that goes. Every tournament's a personal best. And I said, I like other sports. I like playing football. I like doing these other things. But from a family perspective, I wish I could figure out a way to show people what I know about the narrative and what it's done for me and my family. Because I think if people get that picture, they would be super, super motivated to get their kids in skiing. What's your view on that?
I I have to completely mirror it. I mean, I unfortunately my little girl didn't get to ski nationals this year because she was injured, but my relationship with her, and again, I'm very lucky. I have a wonderful relationship with my 10-year-old daughter. Um, but my relationship with her is so augmented by the water skiing experience. And I look at, you look around, I look at like Kale Burdick with his little girls,
Right.
or I'm going to slaughter names, but you go down to the girls 1, 2, 3 starting dock, and you look at the interactions between the parents and the kids, and it's mostly magical. It's
Yeah.
it's fantastic. I cherish my water ski time with my daughter so much, and I think um, I, it's the best part of water skiing for me.
Yeah. No, and there's something to be said about the way it develops younger people. I think most people that grew up in the sport would say that you become almost by default very different than the peers that you go to school with because you learn a lot of different things. I mean, you're learning self-discipline with the training, you're learning to travel, you're learning to pack a 3 event bag. All of those things seem like, well, okay, that's just another thing. But when you're doing all that stuff, and a lot of us did at 14 years old, you're just having a different experience. And so I'm going to be thinking about that. I'm going to be thinking about how to tell that story and that value. Okay,
Yeah.
we've covered that one with
Okay.
competitive water skiing. Ball of spray.
Hmm.
What's the future of ball of spray? We kind of know where you're at on competitive water skiing. This is what you do. This is what you do for a living. How does that fit into the next 10-year picture?
You know, I will tell you that I have tried to pivot a number of times. There was long conversations about a wakeboard version or a surf version. Just from, I mean, it may not fit into our narrow focus on tournament water skiing. And every time I've looked at that and done deep dives and talked to industry people, I end up back at Ball Spray facilitating conversations.
Mm,
Um, there's a few, we've added. There's now a coaching service in the
mm,
website, which is kind of ancillary. It could almost fit outside Ball Spray. Ball Spray's mission, I think, is pretty much a straight path: facilitate conversations, distribute news, promote the sport. Um, I really haven't been on Watchdog as much the last couple of years because it hasn't been necessary, but I do accept that role. I don't really think in 10 years, I don't I don't see a big pivot. I think I found my lane. This is the path. It's gone well. I see other people doing a little bit of news, and I mean, great, good for them. But if I'm helping people enjoy their experience on the water, if I am helping people choose equipment and buy boats, and forget the buy boats and buy equipment. If I'm helping people enjoy their experience on the water, I'm doing my job.
interesting. And it's interesting because you say that like with buy equipment because like the first website that pops into my head on that is skiitagain.com,
Oh,
right?
well,
So
yeah,
like
yes, yes, yes,
it's
yes.
like it's so interesting how yours is. I mean, it's like you are completely in your lane because I don't think of anywhere else to go for the questions that I have, and you completely
Right,
own that lane. And then that's a totally different thing with the buy and sell equipment. So,
right, right.
um,
And that's not what I meant, but let me, since you mentioned Larry, or you didn't mention Larry, but skeetagain.com, I want to, if anybody that's hearing this does not visit that website, you need to. It's where you look at boats. It's, to me, it's the gold standard for how we figure out what our boats are worth. And it's where everybody's buying and selling skis. And the best part is Larry gives every penny he makes to charity.
wow, I did not
So
know that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I give him a hard time because I wish he'd charge more for advertising because we're in business parallel, but whatever.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry if I broke your train of thought.
No, no,
I
that's
gotta give them
great.
a plug because what I meant is helping people choose their equipment because it's extremely hard in water skiing. What skis cost $2,000. Somebody goes into a pro shop and a disreputable pro shop will sell you the ski that has the biggest margin.
Right.
You go to a good shop, you go to Performance Ski and Surf, which is a business partner, or Miami Ski Nautique, who is not a business partner, but I still hold them in high regard. They're going to try to put you in a good piece of equipment that fits you. And my point is, hopefully, the website is helping you choose something that's appropriate because you do see people, buying the wrong equipment for themselves.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Let me ask you this. Have you been the only guy at Ball Spray or you ever had an employee there?
No, no, it's just me. Just me.
Wow.
I had a little bit of moderating help at one time years ago, and just it's me. There's not. It's a small business.
Wow. I just can't imagine going through all of this discussion board stuff. Like, I can't imagine what your day looks like when we have breaking news at a tournament. I mean, are you constantly refreshing that, or how does that work to manage your own time?
I don't read everything anymore. I keep track of the stuff that's going to be controversial. Of course, I'm looking for. I'm watching the culture of the site, right? Like as we discussed previously, I want to make sure everything stays friendly. But if some guys are off talking about the fuel pump on an old Ski Supreme, I'm not reading that. I mean,
Yeah,
if somebody references me, when somebody says something controversial that is really important to the sport or pro skiing or something, yeah, I'm keeping track of that. But as the years have gone on, it is less effort.
hmm,
I mean, I remember a day when I used to come home from my day job, eat dinner, and then go in the office and do stuff on the website. And those days are gone. Now I ski and I pay attention to the website and pay very close attention to my little girl. And
very
my
cool.
wife my wife works the corporate job, which is
Okay.
doesn't seem corporate because she's covered in dirt, but that's a whole nother story.
Okay. Okay. No, that's awesome. Well, we've covered a lot of stuff here, and I don't know if I've missed anything that you wanted to talk about, but I know we could always do a part two. So I'm going to keep that
Sure,
out there in the
sure,
back of my mind.
sure, sure. That'd be great.
Yeah, well, and the thing is that I just want to wrap this through to our listeners about having you on the show is, even the day you decide, maybe my body's out of tread, I can't run another slalom pass, you will still be very influential with the platform that you've created within the sport and the knowledge that you've gained over a lifetime. And one of the challenges that I would have to my generation is there's a lot of people who know a lot about skiing, and we need those people to stay in the sport and we need them to raise their family in the sport because there's just a million benefits to it, but it also benefits our sport. And I think about you and what you know and what you've done and how you still, you ski at a very high level for what you do in your division and how important that is because there's just not too many voices we can call on that have been around that long. I'm trying to think more of your generation, like probably, like a Freddie Krueger. Was Freddie at Monroe when you were there?
Freddie was a freshman when I was a
Okay.
second year senior. And
Okay.
and and by the way, I tell the story too often, but since we're squirreling, uh, I remember I had my open rating, right, was just barely, right. I mean, just I'd squeaked into open jump, and this freshman Freddy Krueger kid shows up, and he was a skinny little kid, and he was telling us all that he was going to be a pro jumper, and I think Brian Swenson and I looked at each other like, this kid. And the lesson there is, if Freddy Krueger says he's going to do something, just believe him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It it's just amazing. We were even offline talking culturally about kind of the path that generation had with extreme sports because water skiing
Right.
was the original extreme
Yeah.
sport. I told you that I just watched Tony Hawk's documentary
Mm-hmm.
and I saw how closely in a lot of ways the sport of skateboarding was tracking up through the 80s and the
Mm-hmm.
early 90s with what was going on in water skiing. And it's just been interesting, and I would want kind of as your last opinion here, when you look at the history of extreme sports and then where we are right now, with that, because something like the X Games comes out, and okay, we can't regular jump anymore. Let's try to ski fly, or we bring in barefoot jumping, or something that goes more extreme. And then the envelope just keeps getting pushed to where, guys are doing three backflips on a motorcycle. Do you think we still are in that extreme category, or are we in a new kind of category for sports and water sports?
Yeah, I don't really know how you draw those lines. I mean, I look at the X Games, and the cynical side of me says that it's the reason why we're not in the X Games is because of business. Is water ski jumping incredibly extreme? There's
Yes.
just no question about it. It is bonkers crazy. Especially when you might watch a ski event or jump event, and everybody lands on their skis and nothing goes wrong. But like, when there's money on the line and there's a tailwind, and it starts going wrong, you realize just how brutal it can be.
Right. Right.
It is extreme. Um, but the parallels to skateboarding is just, I think, the way the world economy and the U.S. economy and the culture's changed, we just fell out of vogue, and I think that's super unfortunate. I'm not really sure it's anybody's fault. And I know I just wandered off your original question. Sorry.
Well, and that's what's so cool is like sometimes you get that breath of fresh air. Like I remember when I had the opportunity to announce somebody like Joel Poland for the first time.
Mm,
I was like, whoa, whoa, like this is like Tony Hawk. This is like Sammy
yeah,
Duvall. This is like, and you wonder if we're just not a couple athletes away of pulling us back to more of the pop culture. And I wonder that sometimes. Like,
yeah.
is it just that one thing? I don't know.
I know I'm a pessimist about this, but no, I just don't think that the media environment in the current world. I mean, look, Joe Poland is an astounding super athlete. There's a number of athletes that I look at and I say, we are so blessed that they got into water skiing for our good. But if they had gone somewhere else, like Carl Bears, I
Yeah,
believe
Carl's
was
good.
a was I don't know how good a surfer he was, but I understand that he was a pretty competitive surfer. If he'd gone to surfing, he might be long retired multimillionaire. I'm sure he does very well selling insurance, but we were lucky to have these amazing athletes. I don't, you're kind of inferring that a magical athlete here or there would change our fortunes. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, the most important thing that we have happening for us right now is TWBC. That's making a positive impact, but is it growing our popularity outside of, the people that are already aware of it? And you look at, I mean, you give Poland credit. I need to look it up. His Instagram following is bonkers huge,
Yeah.
but the universe of Instagram viewers is incalculably big. It's so uh,
Maybe if
his
we
impact.
could get Poland to stand in for Johnny Depp on some of these movies, that would do it.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just spitballing, but it's it's going to be interesting to see how the next 10 years goes with the website. I know your website's going to be super influential in whatever direction that ends up happening. I know that I'm committed to being deeply involved with, raising my family in the sport and going through. Um, and again, kudos to nationals this year. That was just an amazing experience. Well, John, this has been amazing. I like I do with all my listeners, I want to give you a handoff where people can find you, obviously ballspray.com. But if people are trying to get in contact with you, how do they do it?
It's just, I mean, honestly, if they want to, Horton at ballspray.com is the most generic email ever. But, if people need something, or please come into the forum, join the forum. It costs nothing. You can message me or any number of other members at any time. You will see a lot of content from me on Facebook, but it's not really the way to get a hold of me. Just come through Ball Spray. Please, people, just, it doesn't matter your skiing level. If you are trying to learn to run the slalom course for the first time, come into the website. You can post a video for free and members will coach you. I mean, I'm not even going to ask you to post a paid lesson where somebody like Terry Winter would come in and coach you. Just, you don't know what ski to buy, ask in the forum. You may not hear from me, but any number of people will come in. I mean, the website is there for everybody. So I'm there. Thousands of skiers are there. Please come and contribute. Don't be shy about joining and commenting.
Awesome. Well, John, this has been incredible. Thanks so much for your time and everything you do for the sport. You're a true ambassador, and we'll be following ballaspray.com.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, until next time, we're signing off.